El capitán busca un puerto seguro. Busca Alejandría, en Egipto, en una costa estrecha y peligrosa. Las corrientes son traicioneras. Los marineros han lanzado el escandallo, así, sondeando las rocas para ver si la línea tiene lodo de río, que demuestre que están cerca de la costa. Antes de que la ciudad moderna se construyera, no se veía nada en el horizonte, hasta casi llegar a la playa. Por tanto, de las 7 maravillas, la más práctica era la construcción llamada el faro. Se levantaba aquí. Construido alrededor del año 285 a.C., era una de las 7 maravillas del mundo. Podía verse desde 48 kilómetros mar adentro, señalando la antigua ciudad y el puerto. Una luz mágica que, según la leyenda, quemaría las velas de los botes atacantes. Sin embargo, el faro hacía mucho más que guiar a las embarcaciones. Simbolizaba y celebraba uno de los experimentos más espectaculares de la humanidad: el nacimiento de la ciudad moderna, la metrópoli mágica. Hubo un tiempo en que en la larga costa egipcia solo había unas cuantas villas de pescadores, rocas, bancos de arena y algunas focas tomando el sol. Entonces llegó Alejandro Magno, construyendo un imperio que se extendería de Egipto a Afganistán.
Alexander loved cities. He liked founding cities. He founded 17 cities that he called Alexandria. He had a very interesting attitude about cities and architects. A young man came to see him once called Dinocrates. He said he had a great idea for a city. He said, "I'll get a landscape and I'll carve it into the likeness of you, Alexander, and in the palm of this figure will be an entire city called Alexandria." Well, the idea was that the clouds would form around the statue's head and the water would run down the veins in the arm and feed the city. Alexander looked at the plan. "I like this boy," he says. "I like the way he thinks." But the city isn't going to work, because the true blood of a city is not water down the vein, but trade. So when Alexander founded a city, he thought about trade. Look, I'll show you what I mean. The first thing Alexander thought of was a big square marketplace, and he put it right on the beach between the Nile and the sea. That's the coastline along there. And then he worked out the various quarters of the city, and he put a huge wall around the whole thing. Within 20 years, Alexander was dead, and the architects had moved on a bit. They put a causeway from the marketplace to a little island off the coast. They put a great crossroads in, and at the centre of the crossroads, they put Alexander's tomb. He died and was buried in his city. So the city really, which was full of wonders, walls, palaces, anything you could think of, had 2 special wonders: the lighthouse on the island and Alexander's own tomb. Think of what the man had made. He'd made a city after his own ideas. This was a city full of Egyptians, full of Greeks, full of Jews. It was a multicultural modern city, and it was full of wonders, full of temples and palaces. It was a new city for a new age.
La lista de las 7 maravillas fue hecha en esta revolucionaria nueva era. 2 de ellas, 2 maravillas urbanas, el faro y la tumba de un rey, un mausoleo junto al mar, fueron símbolos sutiles de la fe de estas ciudades en el comercio, su ancla y su publicidad. Ahora la antigua Alejandría está sepultada debajo de una ciudad moderna. Así que no hay mucho que ver de su antigua efervescencia del mundo de Alejandro. Y lo que hay está en el mausoleo. Me gustan los museos locales. Están llenos de cosas auténticas, no de antigüedades compradas en subastas, sino de cosas que la gente encontró cuando construía su cochera o instalaba semáforos. Piedras sueltas de ciudades sepultadas. Es bello, ¿no?
It's a very beautiful fragment of completely vanished Alexandria from the first great Greek period. It's made by a Greek. Even the stone comes from Greece. Everything went past the lighthouse. Marble, slaves, silk, jewelry, wheat from Egypt. This was the beginning of El Dorado. This is the finest work you can possibly get. Practically all vanished. Look at this. Ancient Alexandria, classic Alexandria in a yard and a half. Here's a Greek altar from somebody's house. Here's a Greek text on a bit of a statue base. And here is a native Egyptian, but all dressed up in his best Greek robes. The Alexandrians love to show off. And this is quite a rare Hebrew inscription from ancient Alexandria. The Jews were a very powerful group of Alexandria's citizens. The Hebrew Bible, the Old Testament, was actually translated into Greek here in the very shadow of the Pharos.
Así que la luz del faro significaba mucho más que un puerto seguro. Finalmente cayó en el terremoto de 1375. Estas tal vez son algunas de sus piedras lavadas por el mar. Se levantaba en la punta del muro del puerto. Este espléndido fuerte medieval construido por el sultán mameluco Qaitbay se levanta sobre sus cimientos. Sin embargo, el faro era al menos 5 veces más alto. Con más de 100 metros de altura, la construcción más alta de su época. Hoy, los niños vienen aquí en excursiones escolares. Y en todo alrededor, los muros medievales están salpicados de piedras más antiguas.
There they are, look. Hieroglyphs of a pharaoh. 2,500 years after they stood on a great obelisk, holding up the door of an Arab fort.
Right in the middle of the fortress, they built a mosque. Now, the interesting thing about this mosque is that it isn't orientated like most are to Mecca. This stood on the foundations of the ancient lighthouse. And so it stands north, south, east and west, like the old lighthouse did. And if you look up, just for a while, up into its great tower, what you're looking at, really, is a ghost of the lighthouse. And can't you see in your mind's eye men and donkeys carrying fuel up to the light of the top?
Pero hay un lugar donde aún puede verse un antiguo faro bien conservado y en pie hasta estos días. 48 kilómetros al este de Alejandría, sobre la misma costa, una miniatura del faro. Cuadrado, octagonal y redondo, con una escalera interior.
So this is what the real lighthouse in Alexandria looked like, just 10 times bigger than this one, with a few statues and an inscription. Certainly not like those wonderful things you see in children's books. Neither did it have a great lens on top. You often hear stories of how they had a magic lens which could focus the light and set enemy ships ablaze. Had none of that. It had a little fire up here, and that was probably only turned on when the fleet went by. Still, anything, even a tower, is good for these dangerous waters. But you know, this lighthouse wasn't just for ships. This little one here is above a tomb. It's part of a tomb complex, and this light was to guide the spirit of the dead that was wandering around Egypt back to his body again. And this just a little while after the great lighthouse was made. So as they started that lighthouse on the island of Pharos in Alexandria, those people were saying, look at our new city, how proud we are of it, of its wealth and riches and wisdom and learning. This lighthouse is going to give a new light in the ancient world.
Así que el gran faro, con su linterna protegida por capas de vidrio, se convirtió en el símbolo de la ciudad. Pero no todo estaba bien dentro de la mágica metrópoli. Con la enorme mezcla de credos y costumbres en la ciudad, muchos alejandrinos se sentían muy solos e inseguros. Algunos empezaron a buscar Egipto y sus sacerdotes, y ellos tenían muchas respuestas para aquellos cuyas vidas parecían no tener sentido. Decían que la primera ciudad del mundo también estaba cubierta por tinieblas y dudas. Igual que Alejandría, esta ciudad se llamaba Hermópolis. El nombre de su gobernante era Thoth.
And Thoth, the wisest of all the gods, searched for the forces of creation in the caverns of wind and darkness, and there he set up a lantern, shielded with glass. And Thoth brought language and mathematics to the Egyptians. Now Thoth had a helper, a little white bird with a long beak, whose pecking measured out the land of Egypt. There's one of his mummies. The Egyptians mummified millions of these white birds, ibises, and now they've all gone.
Debajo de Alejandría, rituales secretos invocaban a Thoth para que iluminara a los alejandrinos para lograr unir a la ciudad del Faro con la ciudad de Hermópolis. Y Thoth volvió a nacer. En estos días, las enormes ruinas de la ciudad sagrada de Thoth, la verdadera ciudad de Hermópolis, en Egipto, está rodeada de pueblos de granjeros. Pero el fantasma de la antigua ciudad aún está aquí. Vean la mezquita del pueblo. Nuestra palabra, minarete, viene de una vieja palabra árabe, manara, que significa lugar donde arde el fuego. Y esto tal vez, en la neblina, sea un recuerdo del rostro del faro. El pasado está en todo nuestro alrededor.
These huge multicultural cities completely transformed the ancient Egyptian religion. Alchemists turned the dead Osiris and his sister into two metals, which if you put them in a crucible and heated it and said the ancient prayers, in their embrace turned into perfect drops of gold. Alchemists never forgot Hermopolis. For them it was the seat of wisdom, the perfect city. They said it was laid out like the signs of the zodiac, and at its centre, well, at its centre stood a vast lighthouse with a huge light that gave out different colours to each part of the town, so that all the people in them, under these different colours, had different temperaments. Now, if you think this is just old and dusty, just think about a modern city. Think about the banks and stock exchanges built like ancient temples, and those great glittering towers with lights upon their top, and the mausoleums and the cenotaphs to join the living to the dead. They're all signs, the alchemists will say, of this ancient city of Thoth. And then, look at a dollar bill. There's 2 of the 7 wonders on it. There on the back of the Great Seal, there's the pyramids of Egypt, and at the top, a light. This is the mystic light from the lighthouse of Alexandria. The lighthouse has gone, but the beams send their rays out over America and brings us, so the motto says, a new order of the ages.
El cementerio griego de Hermópolis parece muy inofensivo ahora. Sin embargo, estas son las reliquias de un devastador choque cultural. Un texto que podría ser la voz de todas las culturas antiguas que han sufrido interferencias e invasiones. Un sueño donde los dioses abandonan Alejandría y se levantan contra estas nuevas ciudades blasfemas, donde hay solo 7 maravillas, y todas, obra del hombre. Estas son las tumbas sin excavar de los antiguos reyes de Sardes, la capital de Lidia, al occidente de Turquía, donde se inventó el dinero. El dinero era el combustible de las nuevas ciudades de Alejandro. De las 7 maravillas a la bolsa de valores, una gran parte del mundo moderno empezó aquí, junto a estos campos ondulantes. La ciudad de Sardes estaba al final de una legendaria ruta comercial que iba a Oriente, a Persia, y la ruta de la seda, con mercaderes, mercenarios y reyes como Creso, cuya legendaria fortuna decían que provenía del oro tomado de un pequeño arroyo que descendía de las colinas a través del antiguo mercado de la ciudad. No es necesario decir que los arqueólogos siempre han estado interesados en Sardes.
They didn't find King Croesus' legendary marketplace, but what they did find were the very workshops in which the modern world was forged.
When modern archaeologists dig sites like this, they always sieve all the dirt they take away. And to their amazement, the archaeologists working here found little pearls of gold turning up in their sieves. What they found wasn't the marketplace. It was the very place, the smelting places of the gold from the little stream. What was going on here, you see, was in these little hollows. They were putting all the gold and the wood, and it was melting down, and they were taking out these big slabs of gold from the bottom. Now, this had been going on for thousands of years. That's not difficult. What happened next was revolutionary, because you could never control the purity of this gold. It had lead, it had silver, had all sorts of things in it. But the people here, for the first time, made pure gold. They took this lovely golden substance, they beat it flat, they mixed it with salt, they put it in pots, and they cooked it. When they took the gold from the pots, for the first time in human history, they made controllable, pure gold.
So, as usual, the very dust of ancient lives, tiny little relics of the past, suddenly become so important. You see, people lived and worked here about 600 BC, just when Croesus and a few other people were experimenting with the idea of money.
Now, pure gold means that you can make money which is always the same. It's an eternal symbol. When the goddess Artemis Kybele was stamped on equal amounts of Croesus gold, people knew what they had in their hands. Within 50 years, there were banks, misers, merchants, marketplace, men who lived by buying and selling. This idea of a single abstract value that you can actually hold in your hand had come into the world for the first time.
Dinero. Grandes sacos de dinero habían servido para construir muchas de las nuevas ciudades de Alejandro, y también varias de las 7 maravillas. Como era de esperarse, cuando Alejandro murió en el año 323 a.C., su imperio se dividió rápidamente en reinos más pequeños, cada uno gobernado por sus generales y banqueros. Cada ciudad estaba sola. Los muros de las ciudades se convirtieron en sus armaduras, tan grandes y magníficas, que se contaban como maravillas por derecho propio. Estos tremendos muros levantados en kilómetros de montañas protegían la pequeña ciudad de Heracleia, junto al lago. Son enormes monumentos a la antigua inseguridad general. El nuevo hombre en su bravío nuevo mundo tenía miedo. Ciudades blandas, colocadas dentro de las duras y cerradas protecciones. Sin embargo, ahora, el dolor y la energía que fabricó estos brutales muros parecen haberse evaporado, dejándonos hermosas ruinas. Las ciudades de Alejandro también han desaparecido. Aunque en Turquía, unas cuantas de ellas, como Heracleia, aún existen. Con todas sus ruinas maravillosas, sus templos y estatuas, vagos recuerdos de su esplendor, los ancestros de todas las ciudades modernas. Priene, en el occidente de Turquía, es la mejor conservada de todas las ciudades helenistas. Casas, mercados, templos, mausoleos. Extrañas ruinas llenas de los temores y esperanzas de la gente de la mágica metrópoli. Al visitar Priene, aún podemos sentir el sabor auténtico de la gente de la época de las 7 maravillas. Aquí están los grandes muros otra vez, guardando los inicios del mundo moderno. La gente del pueblo creía que Alejandro Magno durmió una vez en esta casa.
After Alexander's death, you had to wear white to come into his house. You see, this isn't just Alexander the Great slept here like George Washington slept here or something. In those days, your heroes became gods. So Alexander's house became a shrine. And that's a great altar over there. They found portraits of him and marble offering tables and all the rest. But nonetheless, it is a genuine Hellenistic house from the time of the Seven Wonders period. Normal family dwelling with 2 stories, very high rooms, very small rooms, very dark, with small windows, not much sunlight coming through. Not a very homey place, in fact. But then in these great cities, home, the front parlour, was the middle of the town. And at the end of every street, just like London, the name. But this is the real treasure here. The treasure of all cities of that period. This is a fountain, you see? And the water came out here, ran down there and ran right down the street and into every house. Every citizen had to look after his own bit of the water supply system. Now, the nice thing about the water here is that the whole system was constructed and paid for by a woman, the first woman mayor of the place, a lady called Feely. It's an unusual role for women in society at that time. In houses, for example, they were kept apart. but there was nothing actually to stop them entering public life, and quite often they did. Feely put in this wonderful aqueduct system, recording it in an inscription. There's a lot of civic pride here.
Narrado en español por Aquiles Castañeda Bomer, con la colaboración de Marco Antonio Figueroa.